Hello, witchlings! It's Lorelai. Are you tired of my face yet? Because I feel like I'm actually finally getting comfortable in front of the camera, and you guys are probably tired of my face. Anyway, this video is the third of 4 videos in this little mini series that I'm doing. It's this witchy tag that I got from Alvine. Alvine did it like in 2018. I'm so late to the party and I don't give a shit. So there. Number 18, we're gonna get right into it. Number 18, do you meditate? Yes, I do. I don't meditate enough. I should meditate more. I should meditate every day. I mean, goodness gracious, it's one of the 13 goals of a witch. I should meditate every day. I don't. I should. I want to. It's hard when you have a toddler. I have a 3-nager, and he really likes my face. So I don't do it every day. I do it when I can. Number 19. Do you practice divination? If so, what techniques do you use? Yes and no. I practice divination, but I don't see it as divining the future. Yeah, no. Sorry. My main tool of divination is tarot and or oracle cards. I have a favorite oracle. I have a couple of tarot decks that I really like. One in particular, my favorite tarot deck is the Wild Unknown Tarot. I'm sure you guys know of it because it's everywhere and everyone loves it because it's awesome. So, but yes, tarot is my divination technique tool of choice, but I don't see it as telling the future. I don't see it as giving me, this is what's going to happen. No, I see tarot as a way of, tarot is like that friend that you talk to about an issue you're having, and they give you another way to look at the problem. They give you another lens to view it with. They go, did you think about it this way? That's tarot for me. If I have a problem and I'm struggling through it and I'm having trouble making a decision, and my husband has weighed in and my trusted friends have weighed in, and I still feel just like I'm not 100% sure on the choice I should make, on the decision I should make, or where I should go, I ask the cards. And 9 times out of 10, the cards give me something to think about that I didn't before, and or they give me a window into my own thinking. So I am super metacognitive. If you don't know what that means, metacognitive is thinking about thinking. I think about the way I think all the time. I'm constantly looking at how I think and my psychology behind something and going, why do I do things that way? Why do I feel this way? What's causing this? Yeah. So when I involve the tarot, a lot of times it gives me another lens to look at my problem through. And I go, I didn't think about that. Or something will pop up. I'll read a card and I'll go, oh my God, I didn't think about it that way. I'll go, oh, that pops something else into my mind. Or I'll feel a certain way about a card when I see it. Either I don't like it, or I do like it, or I'm like, ooh, you know, and it helps me just think about it in another way. Yep, that's my divination. Number 20, moon phases, planetary correspondences, day of the week, hour, irrelevant, or key. Both. I think it helps. But if you're in a hurry, or you're not into that, do what you're gonna do. You do you, baby. Yeah. I like to take moon phases into account because I feel an affinity with the moon. I love the moon. The moon is like, oh, I love the moon. Just, so beautiful. Anyway, this is honestly, like, this is why I live in the country, so that I have a really good view of the moon and the stars at night. Because if you live in the city, you can't see it as well, and that's why I love the country. I love the moon. So yes, I take moon phases into account most of the time. I don't know a whole lot about planetary correspondences. I just haven't felt called to look into that much. So do I take that into account? No, not really. I hear every once in a while, like, Mercury is in retrograde. Yeah, I don't even know what that means, guys. I'm sorry. If you know what it means and you have a really easy, simple way of explaining it to me, please explain to me in the comments, because I'm too lazy to go look it up. Because I don't know what it means. All I know is it's like negative or something. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I've always gotten like a negative vibe from people who are like, oh, Mercury's in retrograde. You gotta be careful. And I'm like, okay. Anyway, 21, spell language. Do you keep it simple, dress it up? Is it poetry? Is it silent? I think what they meant by saying, is it poetry, is does it rhyme? Because, I'm sorry, my poetry doesn't rhyme, usually. But I also haven't written a whole lot of poetry since high school. I really want to get back into it, but I kind of feel, when I try to write poetry, I kind of feel like a fraud. So I just haven't done it in a while. Have you noticed the pattern here? If you've watched like all 3 of these videos so far, I feel like I've said I feel like a fraud a couple of times. I do. I feel like a fraud a lot. That's something that I'm working on. Working on it. I usually either keep it simple, maybe like do like a, oh, what is it called? Like a mantra, you know, chant something over and over again, repeat it in my head. Either that or it's silent. It's more about my intention, my will, visualization, that kind of thing. I know that words are power. I believe that words are power. So I do try to incorporate words in some way, but usually it's words in my head. A lot of times it's words in my head. Yep. Number 22, do you keep a book of shadows or a grimoire? That is a yes and no question. If you've watched some of my other videos, then you know the answer to that. I do not keep what I call a book of shadows or I call grimoire. I don't call it either of those, but it is basically the same thing. I just use the term apocrypha because I'm special and I want to be that way. So there. But yeah, it's basically the same thing. I just call it apocrypha. I really, really like it. It helps me. I really should journal more. That's what I'm gonna say about that. Number 23. Do you have an altar? Is it dedicated to any specific deity, season, or anything else? I do have an altar. I have a couple of altars. Right now I have kind of a makeshift altar in my bedroom on top of a chest of drawers. I have an actual very pretty secondhand that I refurbished altar that is beautiful and lovely, and it has 4 drawers and each drawer is dedicated to one of the elements. Love this altar. And it's currently in my shed because it doesn't fit in my house because we downsized my house. So yeah, I miss my altar. It's in my shed. I want to get it out, but I need to add to my house first. So you know, I'm using places, like I have kind of like a mini little like crystal incense altar on the windowsill in my kitchen by my sink. I have set up a tiny little mini altar with my cauldron and some holy water and some candles on a buffet in my dining room. I have a witch's ball hanging from one of my windows in my living room, and I have my little mini altar thing, like makeshift altar, set up on my chest of drawers in my bedroom. I have my crystal lamp and some candles and incense set up on my bedside table. I'm just gonna have my stuff everywhere. Yeah, my altar is my whole house right now because I don't have space for like my little tiny, it's not that tiny, it won't fit, but I don't have space for it. Okay. Number 24, thoughts on the afterlife. Oh my God, I could do a whole freaking video on thoughts on the afterlife. So I'm going to try to keep this short, and maybe I'll make a longer video later just based on this. I believe something has to happen. I don't believe that when our bodies die, that everything just turns to dust and our consciousness just ceases to exist. I don't believe that. That's the one big issue that I have with atheism, honestly, is like, I just don't, I can't believe that. I don't know if that's just me not wanting to or what, but I can't do it. I believe our consciousness has to go somewhere. And I think part of that is also like the fact that I've experienced my consciousness kind of sort of leaving my body behind and going somewhere else. I'm like, obviously I can go somewhere else. So when this carbon shell, you know, withers and dies, my consciousness can't just cease to exist. It's going to continue on. A lot of my belief about the afterlife has to do with being part of a larger energy source, which is deity. If anyone has read God's Debris by Scott Adams, I really actually enjoy that theory about us being God's debris, and when we die, our consciousness kind of reabsorbing and trying to make it back to source, I guess. I don't know if I believe fully in reincarnation. I think it's a really good idea. I think the theory has merit, but I haven't done enough research to know definitively how I feel about reincarnation, how it works. And I don't know if I'll ever have a definitive, like, opinion on how it works, because when it comes right down to it, I don't know, you know, like, we're all just kind of guessing. So I think reincarnation is very possible. Do I think definitively, like, that's what happens to us when we die, that we reincarnate in another life? I don't know. It's a possibility. It could happen. Okay. And number 25, which is the last one for this video, which is funny because this is probably the shortest video of all of the ones I've done so far, which is like 3. But still. Number 25, do you or would you teach and practice witchcraft with your children? I have a child. He is 3 years old. He is my little 3-nager. I love him, and I have practiced witchcraft with him. I have not called it witchcraft. I have called it a spell. I have talked to him a little bit about stuff here and there, but I have not, I don't want to shove it down his throat. I want him to make his own decision. And part of that is not shoving my beliefs down his throat. I was raised Christian. I was expected to be a Christian. I was expected to believe Christian, to the point where, like, and I see a lot of myself in my son too. I was very naive and gullible, and I believed a lot of stuff that people told me. And I also kind of believed, like, I kind of made the connection in my head. It was not made outrightly for me. It was just like, I was like, oh, well, you know, I just assumed if my parents were taking me to this church and this church is teaching me these values, then obviously my parents share these values, right? Not necessarily. So, I mean, that was something in high school. I was like, oh, I'm gonna save myself for marriage. No sex until marriage. Do you think my parents waited? Hell no. Did I find that out in high school? No, I found that out when I was 19. And I promptly went and had sex. I mean, okay, I was in a long-term committed relationship. I've been with this guy for 1.5 years. But that was one of the big things that was holding me back from having sex with this person that I really, truly felt like I loved. Was, if my parents waited, I can too. My parents didn't freaking wait. They dated for 5 years before they got married. And do you think they waited? Oh, hell no. And that's kind of the way my mom looked at me. Like, when I asked her, I was like, wait, so you were on birth control? So you and dad, wait, And my mom was like, you're an idiot. And I'm sitting there going, yep. Very, very naive. Total idiot. Nah. So, yes, I teach and practice witchcraft with my kid. But I don't want to shove it down his throat. I don't want him to believe that it's the only way. I don't want him to believe that this is what you must do or your parents are going to hate you. Because that's not true. It's just not true. If my son grows up and he wants to be a Christian and he wants to go to church, I will be okay with that. Now, there are some limits. I'm not going to let him go to any fundamentalist bullshit church that tells you that everybody that's not you is going to hell, because that's bullshit. But if he decides in high school that he wants to go to youth group with some friends, and I know what church they go to or whatever, and it's an okay church, and I trust his judgment, absolutely. Have fun, man. Go do your thing. Because honestly, if it's a good church, then it's a way for kids to get together and socialize and have fun in an innocent way. They're not drinking, they're not doing drugs, they're not out friggin', like stealing shit and well, they may be roughhousing, but they're not like going and doing like illegal things or whatever. Like, they're in church. Okay, like that's way better than going out and binging and getting drunk and driving home and trying to drive home drunk and getting in a car accident on the way home because you're a dumb idiot 16-year-old and then I've lost my child for the rest of my life. No, I'd much rather you be in church, okay? Much rather you. And I'm not even Christian, like, don't get me wrong. But I also want to trust his judgment, because I had an experience when I was growing up. I was Christian. And I started going to a youth group with some friends of mine. It wasn't the church that I went to on Sundays with my family. It was a church that my friends and I went to youth group on Wednesday nights. That was my only involvement with that church. I went for a couple of weeks. 1 week, we got there. It was a Church of Christ. 1 week, we got there. We started our youth group stuff. We did some of the praise songs, all this stuff. We sat down, and the youth pastor starts talking to us about, he's doing his spiel, whatever, his message for the night. And he starts telling us that interracial dating, interracial marriage, all this crap is wrong, is a sin. And about half of us called bullshit. After that youth group, my friends and I walked out and we were pissed. So pissed. I mean, the thing is, like, he wasn't just talking about black and white. I mean, he's talking about, like, okay, when I was a freshman, I dated a Puerto Rican guy. That's a different freaking race. Okay? Like, as far as it comes, when he's talking about interracial, I had done some interracial dating. Are you friggin' kidding me? That's not a freaking sin. So on my way home, I am pissed. I'm talking to my mom about it, and she's like, seriously, that's what he said? And I was like, yeah. She goes, you realize that there are several marriages in the Old Testament that are all interracial. I was like, really? So my mom starts spouting them off. Like, she's like, oh yeah, Esther's marriage was interracial. Ruth was interracial. Like, she's spouting off all these people from the Old Testament that married a different race. And I'm like, you freaking rock, Mom. like way to just, like, take the Bible and slap somebody upside the head with it, and prove them wrong. So anyway, that's my tangent for this video. But yeah. So next time, my fourth and final video for this tag is going to be questions 26 through 30. So there's only 5 questions next time. But yeah, tune in. We're gonna have fun.